Welcome, welcome. 3 minutes. Woo! Hi, Mama. Yeah, we're going to start with 3 minutes of music so you guys can settle in, get into your body, out of your head. Suave, suavecito. You want to dance? Dance with me. If you're uncomfortable, it's okay. If you're a little hungover and you're like, God, this girl is annoying starting with music, you're in the right place. If you're loving it, hi, Melissa. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. 3 minutes. All right, so here's what I want to do. For these 3 minutes, while you're looking to this crazy Latina dancing, maybe loving it, maybe hating it, it's all good. Welcome all of your feelings. 3 minutes of music. Hi, Amanda. Woo! Britain in the house. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Let me know if you're sober already, and just put sober, or if you're not yet there. So tell me where you're coming from. If you want to drop an hola, that's great. But I want to know, people in the house, if you are sober already or not yet. Sober, yeah. 14 years. Judith. Woo! Okay. Woo! Despacito. All right. Sober 5 weeks. Yes, Melissa. Awesome. Very cool. All right. Yes, I'm about to kill the music, but take a minute. This is as much for you as it is for me, by the way. I just need to get back into my body before I can teach. Yeah. Ignite the Latina in me. Ooh, that one was a good one. Make me a little out of my comfort zone. Make you a little out of your comfort zone. Because that is life. We have to get uncomfortable in life. And being sober, sometimes it's really, really uncomfortable. And also really, really beautiful. And today, yeah, too much partying last night, Dana. All right, I get you, girl. Sober curious. Yeah, awesome. Welcome. I honor your time. God, I'm so grateful to be here on this Saturday with all of you. My name is Pamela. I am a woman in the journey of recovery from all the things: trauma, codependency, love addiction, sex addiction. It's awesome to say that. It's true. Alcoholism is my big one, but codependency was right underneath all of it. And so in order to truly heal, I had to get really honest and look at all that. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. Hi, Lucy. Ooh, Bea, not yet. Awesome. Rebecca, cannabis and food addiction. Will this work for you? Yes, babe, because we are talking about taking ownership of your life regardless of what your thing is. So absolutely, welcome. Definitely. And so here's how this is going to go. This is my second live, so it's very exciting. I have been a teacher and insight timer since 2018, 19. So it's been a minute, but I haven't been really active here. And I just, the stars hadn't aligned. And honestly, I wasn't ready to get uncomfortable either. And this is, a place and a position where I'm talking to you guys. Yes, codependency is such a thing, where I get to be with you, with each one of you, stretching the ideas that we have been given historically, most of us, if you are a little like me, about sobriety, about what it means to be in recovery, about addiction, about all the things. And so now my hope is to connect with you more like this, like one-on-one. I am a coach. I'm the founder of My Badass Recovery. I love working with people one-on-one, of course. And an Insight Timer, I'm very grateful because I've had a course, a 10-day course. If you have not yet taken it, I really encourage you. Meditations, courses. I'm, so grateful and honored to have this be in your ears and in your hearts. So more of this. So we're going to talk we're going to be together. We're going to share space for about an hour. The way that this is going to go, Dana, hi, welcome. I'm going to share a little bit about my story because obviously, as a coach, I use a methodology and a framework that I developed, but mostly what makes me different from the therapists and other people that want to help in the journey out of a pattern of addiction is that I've been there. And this is my superpower. And as you will hear later on, this is also your superpower. That's the beauty of it. It takes one to know one. And when we can connect fully with our hearts, we actually understand addiction better because the people that are out there, and I love therapists and I'm all for therapists. I love them. They have a place in this journey that is so precious. But when it comes to understanding our addiction, we cannot operate from our mind and a framework of rationality because addiction is not rational. So anyway, so we'll do a little bit of that. At the end, I will have time for Q&A. So thank you for the comments of the courses. Thank you. I will have time for Q&A. You don't need to be taking notes. Sometimes good shit escapes out of my mouth. You want to catch it, have a notepad. Obviously, I cuss. I'm Latina. I'm on fire. I am, I arrived to the US a long time ago and I became very quiet and very small through my addiction. And part of what has been uncovered in my journey of sobriety is I'm getting back to my authentic self. And apparently that authentic self sometimes cusses. Also, English is my second language. So if I don't speak properly something, just love me. Love me. Okay. And yes, and I, as a teacher, am given the guidance and the, encouragement to get uncomfortable and tell you that while I love coming here, one of the things you can best do for me to encourage this space on my Saturday where I get to be with you and you get to be with me more often is throwing a couple of bucks and my virtual hat at the end. Donations are important for us teachers. We do get the majority of that through this platform. Very grateful for how it all works. And you don't have to give a big amount. If like each one of you puts a couple bucks, then that helps me kind of be like, all right, they like what I'm doing. So anyway, that was my little ShamWow moment. It's uncomfortable, but I've learned to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So we begin. Thank you, Dana. Oh my God, Kate, I love you. Thank you. For those of you who know my story, I will be brief, but for those of you who don't, it is important that you know that today I'm here to talk about being empowered in your life as a result of your decision to get sober or get recovered. So for those of you who alcohol isn't a thing, plug in your thing. Because at the end of the day, the most beautiful definition that I have found from my many teachers, from Gabor Mate to Tommy Rosen, is this simple phrase. Addiction is any manifestation in our life of any kind of behavior or thought process that causes pain and brings us bad consequences, and that we want to stop, but we can't. And it's so simple. When you think about it like that, I literally just want to cry how simple it is, because for so long, when I started to struggle in my own journey with sobriety and the word addiction or even alcoholism came up, I just flat out shut down. And I couldn't see that what they were saying was a reflection of my own life, because my perception of addiction was so stigmatized. I thought addiction really was the representation of a person who had chosen to give up on themselves, who had chosen to give up on their life, who was either drinking or using drugs or whatever, because they just didn't have willpower or strength. And they chose to live under the bridge. And so I love beginning here, because in 2009, when I myself was trapped in a cycle that some days looked like a whisper, some days it was pretty manageable, but most of the time when I started to drink, I couldn't moderate or stop. Most of the time, I was actively trying to control and losing control. Most of the time, I could not say, I'm not going to drink and hold my word for more than a couple of days, if that. And so addiction really is important to understand from the very beginning. When I walked into the rooms of 12-step meetings, I thought I didn't belong there, even though this idea of me wanting to drink moderately or quit altogether was constantly being turned on its axis. So I walk into my first meeting, AA, in 2009, the night before I have driven my son drunk, fun. This is the compassion, because no matter how many times I tell the story, it still hits me like a punch. But like I said, I've learned to love on myself and understand that I wasn't acting as a terrible mother. I was acting as a person with addiction. I belong to a community of women called She Recovers, and the founder, one of the co-founders of that community, Dawn Nickel, uses one of my favorite phrases: the shit you did is the shit you did, not who you are. So I didn't know that at the time. I drive my son drunk. By the grace of God, nothing happened. But clearly something happened internally. The next day, I took myself to my first 12-step meeting to understand what the hell was wrong with me. And why was I doing something that was so abhorrent to me? I was in total shame, devastation, self-hatred, you name it. And when I learned in the rooms of AA that I was suffering from a condition that apparently everyone there had, of my mind, because my mind couldn't keep me away from that first drink, my mind would whisper in my own voice that it was a good idea to have one, and that this time it would be different, and that today I deserved it, and that I would start on Monday, and that I wasn't that bad. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Does anyone have that little voice, like in their own voice, that makes you feel like you've done so good, you deserve it? This time it's not going to be the same. Oh, for Christ's sake, of course, you'll be fine. Or you'll, yeah. I know you all can relate. Yeah. So every time, yes, and exactly. And so then what would happen is I would give myself permission. Then the next day, of course, wreckage, right? Because even if nothing had happened, because by the way, I was a single mom and I was working and I was fairly functional in my life. I paid bills. I want to say I raised a magnificent human, at the same time, but I was working so very hard on fighting myself. Either I was fighting my own head with I will drink, I'll not drink. Okay, well, this time I'll drink. Okay, so I'm just gonna have beer, not the wine. No, I'm not gonna have the tequila. It was like this buzz. It was so draining. So much time and so much effort fighting my own self without recognizing that what was happening is that my mind had a process of addiction happening. And that when my mind gave me permission in my voice to change my mind, which I wasn't changing my mind, I was just like a victim to have you guys ever heard of like these zombie ants? There's like some sort of fungi that gets in the operating system of the ants and they become like zombies. It's a real thing. It's almost like that. Like addiction centers in your mind and tells you that one drink is not going to damage you. That one, whatever, right? Fit in your thing. One donut, one, whatever it is, the thing that makes you disconnect yourself from the power of who you are and your life. And then once I gave myself permission, then the body reacts. In 12-step world, we talk about it as an allergy, which is really something that helped me understand this craving. Hi, Eric. This craving that I felt once I began drinking, once my mind gave me permission for that first drink, then my body would set up in motion this allergy, which is really nothing but an abnormal reaction that is present in a few of us and not in everyone. Just like when you eat a strawberry or a shrimp or whatever, and you know, peanuts, and you have an allergy, you can't control it. Same. And not everyone has it, but some of us do. And so I'm giving a brief context of addiction because it is the suffering of not understanding that very simple concept: mind, body, powerlessness over how I react in my relationship, both mentally and physically and spiritually, because then the shame takes over our spirit. In the relationship to alcohol, that was the biggest hiccup that kept me in shame. Something must be wrong with me. It must be me. I am a failure. I'm a fuck up. I'm a bad mom. That's what I said to myself. In smallness, because there's no power there, right? And then in like not going to get the help that I needed because the shame and the smallness, the ignorance, the all of it. So I begin my story giving that context always, whether you've heard it or not, because I want to set the stage for how devastated I was when I walked into the rooms of AA and I asked for help, thinking still that I wasn't like them and that I didn't belong there, but I just didn't know what else to do. So all of a sudden I started to get, you know, information, inspiration, and more importantly, and community. So people that got me, people that all of a sudden were a lot more like me than I wanted to admit. And then when I did admit it, and when I did all of a sudden like put my gloves down, right, Melissa? She and I, Melissa's one of my personal friends and clients. We talked about putting down the gloves, those gloves that we have been fighting ourselves with in the world. And she put that, you know, we put down the gloves, and that's where we get that moment of, and while it's devastating to realize that I'm never, certainly that was true for me, I'm never going to be able to safely use that substance again, drug, alcohol, you know, sugar, whatever it is that I would lose myself in safely or normally. There's also a piece of hope that lands because all of a sudden I'm like, damn, if all of these people, you know, the dancing people, the smiling people, the living people, not the surviving people, the living people, if all of them were like me at some point, could I possibly contemplate that I could be like them? Joyous, happy, and free. Damn. So I very quickly, because my gloves were down, my mind was open, and my body was so devastated by my own cycle of back and forth, it all of a sudden made sense. And for the first time in my life, you don't understand the allergy thing at AA. I'll talk about it a little bit more at the end, Dana. Thank you for that. And remind me when I have Q&A to go back to it. It basically just is I react abnormally when I begin drinking. I'll dive more into it at the end. But when I start drinking, I develop something called a craving. That's like a feeling that I know many of you may relate. I begin drinking a little bit, and I feel so very good that my mind says, you know what? If one is good, two is going to be better. And then you'll stop. Like you see, there's now this craving for more. And I start drinking a little bit more. And then when I'm there, I'm like, you know, 3 is not going to kill me. I mean, fuck it. Come on. And like, I don't have meetings at 7 a.m. And then I go for the 3rd thinking I'm changing my mind. But the truth is I am just reacting to the abnormal reaction in my body. And the worst thing is the more I drink, the less that switch that the normal drinkers around me had. Like I had girlfriends that, you know, would do the same, 1, 2, 3. And then at 3, they'd be like, no, my kids need me at 7 a.m. They would like flip the switch. And with the allergy, I didn't have access to that switch. And so that's kind of like that piece. I'll be happy to talk more about it at the end, but that's, you know, mind, body. I walk into AA, love them, found a sponsor, realized I was here, there was a mountain that I needed to cross and I couldn't do it alone. On this side was a thing they called recovery and was a thing called sobriety. And I knew that that mountain had 12 steps, and that if I got through it, and apparently I needed a Sherpa, which was a sponsor, and apparently I needed people cheering me on, which was the fellowship, the people in the meeting. And so I decided, like I said, my gloves were down and I didn't know what else to do. And so I decided to do it. The good news is that that decision to do the work, see, like, pay attention to what I said. I didn't say the decision to quit drinking. I couldn't access that. I decided to do the work. I decided to put the gloves down. I decided to get a Sherpa. I decided to gear up for the travel of that mountain. I decided to stop listening to my best ideas and just freaking do the work. And that was the best decision of my life. That was in 2009, and within, I want to say, 3 months, I'd done all of that beautiful travel, holding the hand of my Sherpa, my sponsor, and relying purely on the beautiful body of work of the 12 steps. So now, I've gotten to the other side. And here's what that looked like. And the story is, believe it or not, it is a story, because this is the first part that I'm going to tell you about a story that has a plot twist. So in that sobriety, I wasn't drinking. In that sobriety, I was working a program and I was very active in it. In that sobriety, I was getting gold stars because I'm a good girl. And I was getting check marks by my fellowship, my friends in the program, and my sponsor. And at some point, I realized later, but I know now, I was really chasing the high of being a good girl and getting the gold star. In other words, this sobriety was good for me because I wasn't drinking. With that came obviously a lot of beautiful effects in my life. I didn't have the hangovers, didn't have the shame, I didn't have the, physical malaise. I was present for my kid, mostly. Here's the problem. For those 5 years that I was sober, I was mostly focused on not drinking. And I want to let this sink in, because here comes the other ways that I felt. But I want you to kind of take a minute and ask yourself, is where I am only focused on not doing the thing, whatever your thing is? Because I gotta tell you, it felt good, but there was something so radically empty in my life. How that sobriety for me felt was abstinence-based, small, little secretive, never empowered. And here's the most tragic thing. It still felt filled with with anxiety and itchy. I don't know how to describe it, but it felt like I wasn't drinking, but I also wasn't living fully. I couldn't discern this, and because it was better than when I thought I was great. But the truth is, I would walk into parties and still feel like, damn it, why can't I drink like them? I don't think you would have seen this, but I still felt like my shoulders were hunched down when it came to my feeling regarding my not drinking. Because at the core of it, a part of me still believed that sobriety was punishment, that I was being punished, that kind of fear of missing out, by my bad actions with my drinking. And whether I was able to put this in words or not, it was a ideology, a feeling that, if you can recognize, those of you who are familiar with the feeling of shame, was still wrapped in shame. So sober as hell, stone cold sober, I was still detached arguing with myself, a little angry and resentful at the world, or a lot angry and resentful at the world, and certainly shamed about who I was and why I had gotten myself there. And while I couldn't recognize it at the time, I gotta tell you, that kind of sobriety fucking sucked. I was not happy. Furthermore, I'd put down the wine and I picked up the real deal underneath my drinking, my codependency, my inability to take responsibility for a lot of my side and to own my life powerfully. I couldn't do that. I was now relying on whatever person I was either dating or working for, or a family member or a friend, and I was putting every single piece of who I was in their hands. And just in the same way that I was looking at the drink bringing me joy, I was now seeking outside of myself in a relationship to bring me joy, to bring me a sense of who I was, to validate my being a good girl, or to validate my being loved, or to validate something. In other words, I'd taken my power and taken it away from the drink, but I had kind of said, all right, well, I don't know what to do with this, and I'm sober, and I don't know. And I just put it in somebody else's hand, whoever that was. And I think that was fertile ground for a lot of the shit that then came up. You know, anxiety, panic attacks, an inability to even understand and recognize trauma. Big story there. I was kidnapped in Mexico when I was 20. I'm not going to go there because that's a whole other story, but you know, I talk about it in my podcast, talk about it in my course. So it's a huge trauma. Never had thought that that was going to start, you know, rising up. Because here's the truth. If we get sober or recover from any kind of toxic cycle, and all we are taking is the substance that ultimately was our solution. And I would never villainize alcohol, because it really was and served a purpose in my life. It was my best friend. It allowed me to survive. But if I take the substance and just focus on this first part, this layer that for a lot of us is kind of better, but not great, and I don't actually deal with all the crap underneath, then I got all the crap underneath in sobriety. That is the biggest get that I'm so passionate about bringing into your world these days, because that is not enough. That is a horrible kind of existence, period. What does this mean? Yeah, so destructible. Hi, Jules. What does this mean? Well, it means that I relapsed. It means that at 5 years sober, because of my codependency, I ended up in a relationship that served a purpose, loved the dude, was great for what it was at the time. It was also toxic as hell, and I couldn't recognize it. And it was toxic as hell, not for any other reason than how I related to my own self and to the relationship and to the world through it. And so when it was suggested to me that I stop going to meetings so that I could free up time to devote to my new marriage and my new kids and I said, great, I got this. And not only did I stop doing that, but I stopped doing just any other thing that was kind of like the anchors of my sobriety. And all of a sudden, I find myself drinking. In a moment where I didn't even think about it. It was like, oh, that's a good idea. Look, Chardonnay. Surely it won't do anything. And the monster arrived in a very, very loud roar. You would think that with all the knowledge I had of the program, of speaking in podiums all over Dallas, I would have had the ability to very quickly get back on track. And it took me 2 years of revisiting the addiction. 2 years. Guys, that's 700 fucking days. And every day I wanted to quit. Every day I thought today's going to be the last time. And every day I couldn't, and I couldn't recognize why. And it's so simple and it's so beautiful. And I know that a lot of you guys carry this, which is why I really, really want you to pay attention to my next word. Shame. 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 Shame kept me there. This idea that I'd done something bad. This idea, shame. Shame is the most useless feeling. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. She said something, I actually wrote it. Yeah, shame is a waste of our time, like literally. It is a waste of our time because shame tells us that we are failures. Brene Brown, one of my adored mentors, I'm sure you guys are familiar with her, gives a very simple difference between guilt and shame because they're similar feelings, but they're so widely different. Guilt is the idea that what I have done was not great. That what I had done was amiss, it didn't work, it was a failure, whatever, and you recognize it, you look at the action being not supportive of whatever your growth, who you are, your values. You feel guilt because you did something that was bad. I don't believe in bad and good and right and wrong. I believe in truth, but still, it helps in this context. That's my actions were bad. Shame is about the identity of me being the bad one. That who I am is bad. That who I am is a failure. Not that the thing that I did was bad or that the thing or the action that I took was a failure, but that I am a failure. I get so gutted and so separated from my own self and from any vision of anything. And shame for me, and I don't know how it lands for you, but shame for me basically felt like victimhood. And so whether I could put it in words or not, the feeling in my body was, I fucked up. I am a fuck up. I am unable to do this. I am hopeless. I am never going to get this. Because especially I had like the inside, right? I'd experienced the other side. So shame was like, And so now all of a sudden I've lost sobriety. I can't get back on track. I have the shame and I have this narrative in my head of victimhood. And victimhood, again, I feel like they're best friends, they're cousins, they go and drink tequila together, shame and victimhood. Victimhood always allowed me, or it was the best friend of shame, because victimhood was the little voice in my head that said, well, if you had my life, you would drink too. If you'd gone through the shit, you'd do it. And the truth is, look, trauma happens. I'm not here to minimize. In fact, I'm here to honor that each one of you has something, some pain point, whether you do identify it as trauma or not, that is very real. And it is not your fault. And unfortunately is part of us, a lot of us that use alcohol or any other substance to escape that pain. For me, again, it was a kidnapping. What a violation of my basic human rights. I honor whatever it is that you have gone through, loss, sexual abuse, death, parents that didn't know how to parent you. I don't know, and I honor, and I am in no way, shape, or form minimizing the importance of looking at that trauma and honoring the weight of it, and also saying, I'm so sorry if it happened in your life, and it requires some healing, some deep healing. And also knowing that, I also know that my best way to empower myself to start healing that trauma properly with compassion and ownership is to allow myself to drop out of my victimhood. This constant narrative that I had in sobriety and then in my relapse that there was something that was beyond my grasp that I couldn't get to, that wasn't available for me to do, that would always keep me in that place of powerlessness. That was my victimhood. And whatever the storylines were given to me in this victimhood, whatever it was, and I'm an immigrant in the US, so add on all the immigration shit to that, add all the separation, add the fact that I was a single parent, add the fact that now I had labels to deal with, immigrant, alien, Mexican, addict, you name it. I hung on to those, not in a good way. I love my labels these days because I fucking like empower myself through them. I love them. I love being different, but at the time, my victimhood could not get me there. I couldn't. Shame and victimhood were two huge buoys, like not buoys. Yes, I hung on to them, but they were like the big wall that stood between either my sobriety, the MEH-SOBRIETY, the EEEEK-SOBRIETY that I've been describing, and I promise I'm going to get us to the other side, guys. I know that this is the heavy part, but bear with me. Or my relapse. It was all wrapped in shame. It was all wrapped in powerlessness. It was all wrapped in victimhood. Thank you, Christy. I bet you are too, babe. After 700 days of drinking, you gotta laugh. It was a shitload of days. I'd lost my marriage again. And my sense of self, who I was. My son was now 16 and driving to pick me up at bars, crashing the car on the way because he didn't even have a license, and yet he was there to save me again. Shame. But see, shame arrives and I don't let it take over. I went back to basics. I decided that sobriety was never going to feel like that again. This is the turning point, because if you hear and if you can feel it in your body, this is when I decided to drop my shame. I didn't know if I was allowed to, but I decided I was going to fucking give myself permission. I decided to drop the victimhood. I decided to stop being the lead in the telenovela, the soap opera of my life. I decided to grab that pen from all of the crazy villains and writers to whom I have handed the pen without realizing. And in little bits, I started building my path back to a sobriety that wasn't based on me drinking. Perk up your ears. I wasn't so focused on the drinking. I started focusing on fighting for my life. I started focusing on doing things differently and giving myself permission to drop all the crap that was stopping me from getting to a new way of living. That's going to mean separate things for different people. This is what it looked like for me. Yeah, mentality. The mind shift, that breath of giving myself permission, dropping shit that wasn't working for me, recognizing what I was doing wasn't working. What I was doing here wasn't working. What I was doing here wasn't working. My mind, my body, what I was doing here wasn't working. And then I'm left with a terrifying and also exciting white canvas. What the fuck am I gonna do now? And that's where, again, I knew I needed to, of course, address the alcohol piece, but the mind shift was more about, I'm going to start fighting for my life instead of fighting against my drinking. I talked about it in the last meeting. I talk about this with my clients from the very beginning. There is such a huge shift that happens for each of us. So this is a little bit of homework for you guys if you personally haven't experienced or thought about this. This question, am I fighting against my addiction? That really is what encompasses the first 5 years of my sobriety, if you remember. I was just focused on fighting my addiction. Versus, am I fighting for me? for my transformation, for my evolution, for my life. I call it my revolución, my revolution, my recovery evolution. What was in my toolkit? How did I start to bring this into life? I went back to my 12 steps. Huge fan. The actual methodology of 12 steps that get me reconnected to something bigger than myself, that allows for me to access something I can't access by myself. 12 steps done with a sponsor this time who did get me, who wasn't focused on just the check marks, but rather on allowing this new version of myself, shame-free, guilt-free, victimhood-free, to thrive differently through the work of the 12 steps. I got lucky, and also I was seeking a mentor that understood relapse. I was seeking a mentor that wasn't gonna bring me shame, because I'd made a decision I wasn't gonna take shame, either for myself or from others. I wasn't gonna give it to me. I wasn't gonna accept it from the world. Fuck shame. Whether you love that phrase, you hate it, I don't care. For me, that was, if it jives with you, put it on a Post-it. Have it around your house. Fuck shame. We are wired for shame. We have to take a very, very, very big stand against it. Yes, fuck shame. Glad you love it. So I went back to the 12 steps, and here is the juju. And this is where, whether you jive with the 12 steps or not, that is 1000% up to you. This is where I just say, be willing to contemplate that deprogramming, in my case of alcohol, needed a radical new program to come and reset my operational system. We're all big, exotic, beautiful, exquisite computers. I was overtaken by a computer virus. I needed a new program to come and wipe slate clean. Whether that's 12-step, whether that is, refuge recovery, whether that is SMART, whether that is Women for Sobriety. As a coach, I embrace, and I'm curious and excited to experiment, but I do understand that if someone is deeply in addiction, there is nothing more effective than a rewiring through a new set of instructions, through a guide, a Sherpa, a mentor, a sponsor, a coach, and a community. That is what all of these programs that I just described have in common. And I know that for me, I needed that to be the foundation of my new sobriety. I wanted that. I needed that so that I could put my best ideas on a shelf. But here's where it gets juicy. Then I realized that all the crap that I hadn't dealt with before needed to be dealt now with. Now. One of those. My English. You get it. So now all of a sudden I'm like, all right, so what is this codependency thing? Like, it was this weird amorphous concept, right? But all of a sudden I empowered myself, because remember, when you drop victimhood, you give yourself permission, and now you're empowered. So now you're like, look, I get to bring in new mentors, new people, new ideas, new tools into my life. So I went bonkers. I mean, I really did. This is when I decided to join and seek communities beyond the rooms of AA. Get new ideas, get new mentors, start reading, and to make it, I guess, a framework that can be easier to understand, which is a methodology that I use with every single one of my clients. And you've heard it in the Insight Timer course, which again, I really encourage you to go check out. It's this idea of, what am I putting in my mind, where normally all that shitty noise was taking place. Pattern interruption, right? So my program was my foundation, and then I addressed the mind piece separately. What am I learning about codependency? What am I learning about trauma? Can I bring in coaching? I invested in a coach. saved my life. Didn't think I could afford her, didn't understand how it was different, and saved my life. Codependency, mentors, teachers. I am now friends with teachers that I seeked at the time that I never thought they would give me the time of day. And they have lovingly brought me into their life, and they're still part of mine. Could not have made a better decision. And also, what was I choosing to get out of my head, to not accept all the drama, the toxic shit that, just so beautiful what it feels like to have ownership of your own mind space. And by the way, I'm making it sound really empowering and light, and I want to honor there's a lot that may be blocking the ability to enter the space immediately. That's why, again, therapists, mentors, taking ownership of your own healing is at the core of how this all develops. And it's not going to be overnight, by the way. I'm just on fire because obviously it's a journey that I've done. And I also know it doesn't take forever because I see it in my client's life happen very quickly, because it's the dropping of shame and the dropping of victimhood that is so radical. So the mind, amazing, Sarah, 3 months sober. Then my body, God, last night, my beautiful Kate, who was here, said something so brilliant. She was stuck in her head. She was stuck in all the shit. A lot of us are triggered. This weekend, it's Mother's Day, brings up a lot of stuff for a lot of us. A lot of us are going through shit. I'm leaving a toxic relationship. There are moments that I have to go back to basics. Getting out of my mind and my spirit through the pattern interruption of getting in my body. I never understood how my body was the missing link for me to interrupt the insanity, and I say that lovingly, the insanity of my addiction. So now I have my program, my mind, my body. What does that mean? God, go take a walk, go to a yoga, get a class, get on your bike, just be out in nature. I love starfishing, just earth, my God, the sun. Remember that you're alive, that you're a vessel. And little by little, you start to reconnect with your body that has been so abandoned, whether it's because of the way that we approach our relationship with food, because of the chemical fuck up that we do when we are, drinking or drugging. And we slowly start to honor that. And then the spirit. I say then, even though this is like at the core of the juju that changes everything. But needless to say, in this like putting together my little, I needed to kind of put it as a little island of this, and this, but spirit, it's the foundation, right? You guys are on Inside Timer. I don't know if you know this. So clearly you get that. And at the end of it, it's like, what are my spiritual practices? Meditation. Sarah Blondin, she saved my ass so many times. I would come back here and just put her in my ears. God, start my day with her. Start my day with another favorite teacher, Tara Brock. So many wonderful, wonderful people that elevated my spirit. And then, of course, making that mine. Journaling, prayer, meditation, two-way prayer. I mean, so many beautiful things. So I would love to talk in more detail about that, but I just glanced at the clock and holy shit, I've been talking for 49 minutes. But it is so exciting. I hope that you guys can understand, even if it's just like glimpses of how very different this new stage of my sobriety was. I don't even call it sobriety. Sobriety still feels like a silent, small kind of thing. I mean, I do say sobriety but I always say, God, it's this badass, exciting, empowering, delicious, juicy, sexy. That's why I called my platform my Badass Recovery. I don't feel like a badass every day, by the way. Don't. There are many days where I'm like, God, the fuck? And imposter syndrome comes in. But here's the truth. No matter how low my little flame is, I have all the toolkit available and the mindset and the self-trust to know that at the core, how I get to show to my life and embrace my sobriety and embrace the broken pieces, the beautiful pieces, the hiccups, the anxieties, the joys, the impact, all the shit. It's all mine. All mine. And none of it is not welcome. Every single bit of it is mine. And that feeling of empowerment actually makes me feel like a badass. And it can for you too. That is why that's there. It's not for me, it's to invite you to look at your life, even with the gratitude of knowing that every place where you are at right now, sober 14 years, not yet, struggling, hungover, feeling like a badass, hating yourself, all of it is part of the necessary journey to be here now, to be here with me, sharing this space with all of these incredible. I have been sober, so butterfly. So I got sober in 2009 for 5 years. Then I lost my sobriety for 2 years, and I got sober again in 2017. So my stretch of this new badass sobriety, of this new badass recovery, is from 17 to now. I don't know how many years. You guys do the math. I don't count days. I count the beats of my heart. Coin that phrase. Okay. So I am going to be silent now, grateful now. I'm going to open up the floor for questions, put my glasses, because I'm a very proud 49 and my eyes are doing their 49-year-old thing. So that's what scares you. What pushed me to drink after that long. So butterfly, I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the chat, what it was really. Oh, Dana, thank you, 7 years, thank you. So the sobriety that I had at the beginning, those first 5 years, was a sobriety that was still very small, full of shame. I didn't feel proud of it. I didn't own it. It felt heavy. It was more to get the check mark of the people around me than a true ownership of who I was. It was based on lack. It was based on what I couldn't do. It was based on FOMO. There was a little story I told myself, this is a big one, that I was being punished, that it wasn't fair, and that I was never going to be able to fully enjoy my life. It's a story that I told myself. And so that little storyline was the one that needed to go. But in order to go, unfortunately, for me, I'm not saying that every journey requires relapse. When I say it, I get a lot of like, when I say, yeah, recovery is part of my journey, I get a lot of people that have been sober for like day one and never went back that are like, dude, no, settle. If you got straight run, fabulous. But for some of us, where relapse did happen, right, Melissa, my love? It is the most gorgeous invitation, even though I don't recommend we go there if we can avoid it. But if it happens, it is the most gorgeous invitation to have your before and your after. Relapse is not failure, it is information. It is there for you to get loving about yourself, clear on addiction, free of shame, re-empowered to do things different, and ready to do something like uncomfortable, to put your gloves down and your mind down, like on a shelf, and do things differently. So that fear, just to like wrap up this and give way to another question. My friend Elena Brower said something yesterday in a conference that she was giving, so gorgeous. She said, fear and bravery live in the same place. Fear and bravery live in the same place. You cannot have one without the other. So if you feel fear, that is a beautiful opportunity for you to get curious and ask yourself, where do I need to go deeper? Is there something blocking me? What can I do to move forward? And then engage with that bravery. So I'm looking at Kate. So is the key to transcending shame about owning the whole story? I think yes. I think that each person is going to have their own process in throwing away their shame. But the expert in speaking to shame is Brené Brown. And she says that the biggest and fastest way to get rid of shame is first to notice that you are having it. Like everything, step one, like be aware that the problem is there, that it is existing. and then give it a voice. So share it, put it out. Shame hates to have a light shown on it because it's like a vampire. It's kryptonite. So the minute that you say, you know, this is how I'm feeling. I feel like I'm an asshole for drinking. I feel like I'm a blah, blah. I feel like I'm a... All of a sudden you share it with another human being. Obviously pick the human that you share it with. That's why it's so important to have people that get you. And now you're taking ownership. Now the conversation outside is important, but for me, the conversation you have with your own self, this new agreement of how you want to feel and go through life, noticing if you have been claiming victimhood, noticing if that victimhood is what is giving you permission to drink, because that was the little kicker for me. My victimhood storyline was what allowed me to go grab the drink. And so I hated it, but also it was serving its purpose. I had to notice it. So yeah, that is kind of like the process to drop shame and enter a place of empowerment, okay? Do you have a group here in Insight Timer we could all talk and meet? Yes, I do have a community. If you go to my profile, it is a community that has been a little quiet, like me. This is the fun part, and I love that question, thank you. This is the fun part. I want to start showing up live here for you every 2 weeks. That's why you need to throw me a couple of bucks, because you know I need to know that you're listening and loving on me too. Whether you choose to do that or not, I will still show up. Every 2 weeks, I want to come and talk to you guys about something else. And I would love for all of you, if you haven't looked at the course, if you haven't heard my meditations, they're a little old, little outdated, but still very valid. I am going to start creating more content. I just left a toxic relationship myself. I'm very grateful. Love, the human that I was in relationship with was not a healthy relationship. Why I'm sharing this is because now I get to do life again, and I want to do life with you guys. So yes, please join my community. Let's be active. Let's touch base. Reach out to me. This is the most empowering way to go through our sobriety, hand in hand with other badass people doing the same thing. I'm so ashamed of myself. I lied to him. Dana, I hold space for the shame. I think the fact that you are here, babe, you said you're sharing with us that you lied to your daughter and you feel shame about that. The fact that you are here means that your heart is already seeking an answer and seeking a new way. And so resources, go check out the contents that I just mentioned of my own self in Insight Timer. Connect with people. Reach out to teachers and mentors that can help you with that process. But again, this is a conversation with yourself. Brené Brown. Brené Brown is a beautiful author that talks about shame. And here's the funniest part. It feels very complicated to drop the shame. It's very simple. It's a process of compassion with yourself, because when we lie, remember that phrase I said at the beginning, I don't know if you heard it. It's from Don Nickel. The shit you did is the shit you did, not who you are. So if you lied to your family, if you've done whatever thing under the process of addiction or under any other toxic, behavior, hand on heart, shit I did is the shit I did, not who I am. Can I access forgiveness? Can I access, in the same place of forgiveness, ownership? I get to give myself permission to forgive myself and start again. Make amends, make it right, clear the space, take a breath, and rewrite your story. It sounds simple, and yet it's so, so powerful. I hope that helps. Dana has you. Woo! Community. Oh my God, it's already 59 minutes. I talk a lot. Thank you. Thank you, William. Thank you for this. Kate, I love you. Dana, Lucy, please stay close. The next time that we talk, I'm going to do it next weekend, Saturday the 18th. Same time, same channel. We'll dance, we'll chat. I'm going to be talking about specific tools to continue this conversation of reconnection, of empowerment, of shifting a MEH sobriety into a badass recovery. And as usual, I'm here. I love to connect with you guys one-on-one. Reach out to me. My courses, my content are on the platform. This information on the platform. Drop a buck in my hat. It helps motivate me. Helps me pay my bills. I'm trying to spend more time doing this. And it is just, you know, the generosity of people honoring this time as well that feeds my heart, as much as just knowing that you guys are going to take whatever you take from this. If you take anything, is the fact that you are perfectly positioned wherever you are in your journey to start fresh. Whether you have 14 years or 2 hours, you are a beautiful place to redesign your life, completely empowered, completely focused on a different way. You are the owner of your life. You are literally the writer of your story. I grabbed all of those pens from the villains. I kept playing the telenovela drama queen, the victim. I grabbed them back, snatched them back from their hands, and I was like, all right, Mama's writing her story. And I get to write it every day, by the way. The one that I wrote yesterday is not the one that I am married to, because I evolve. And knowing that I am in evolution is one of the biggest gifts that I can give to myself. I want to be respectful. Yes, Lisa. I want to be respectful of your time. It is a Saturday. It is Mother's Day weekend. Whatever your feelings are, whatever it is that you are going through in this weekend, good, bad, hard, easy, this journey is about hand on heart, empowerment, honoring ourselves, a lot of self-care, a lot of self-love, right? Be with you, become your best friend. I have a meditation that talks about that. All right, my loves, happy Mother's Day. Love you. That little boy back there is my kid at 9. That little girl back there is me at 5. Love them both. I hope that you guys have a wonderful weekend. I'm so grateful. Melissa, thank you. Thank you for your donations. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your heart. I will see you next week. Please sign up for my workshop, the 18th of May at 12 p.m. Love you all. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, I'm going to end up the live. I can't find the cursor. Where is my cursor? I don't know where it is. I can't end the live, guys. Apparently, universe doesn't want me to go. Oh, I got it. Okay. Yep, got it. Okay, I'm going to click end. Love you all. Bye.